So the sound of the mortars firing off was absolutely deafening in my eardrums. We were standing next to a trailer in a field in southwestern Vermont, firing off a tremendous amount of fireworks. It was me, my friend Mike, who's been one of my closest friends since I was 9 years old, and Mike's common-law brother-in-law, Ben, firing off an entire trailer of fireworks. The guy that we were celebrating was a guy who is directly responsible for me being in Vermont, directly responsible for me buying this farm, and directly responsible for me giving up my career path in Washington, D.C. to go out on my own. Release the mini Kraken! You see, the reason we were putting on this fireworks display is because we were celebrating someone who had passed, someone who was really important to all of us. You know, I can still remember when I first met the guy. I was 9 years old, and I had just slept over my friend Mike's house for the very first time. And I needed to get a ride back home because my mom was expecting me, but she was kind of tied up and she couldn't pick me up. And so I was asked the question, have you ever ridden in a Corvette? And my 9-year-old brain was blown because I had never ever ridden in a Corvette. But later on that morning, my friend Mike's dad, Jeff, gave me a ride home in his 1984 red Corvette. And it was one of those memories that I will never ever forget. I mean, it was only like a 10-minute drive to go from Mike's house to my house, but it quite possibly was the best 10 minutes of my young life at that point. Hey, Kels, come on, Kels. Hey, Kels, come on, Kels. Hey, Kels, come on, Kels. I mean, it's not every day that a kid gets to go 100 miles per hour riding shotgun in a sports car. And so it was pretty awesome. And so yeah, that was the first time I ever met Jeff, Mike's dad, who was the guy we were setting off all those fireworks for and whose life we were celebrating, because a little bit more than 2 years ago, he passed away. And you know, like I said earlier, if it wasn't for Jeff, I would not be here on this farm, trying to start my own business, living in Vermont. None of these things would have happened if it wasn't for Jeff. You see, when I was a kid, oftentimes Mike and his family would invite me to go up with them to the farm. And the farm was this old farmhouse in Orwell, Vermont. It was like Jeff's personal retreat. And I have just so many crazy memories as a kid hanging out there with Mike and his brother and some of our other friends. And then in our 20s and 30s, Mike and I used to go up there and hang out. Sometimes we'd hang out there with friends, sometimes we'd hang out there with Jeff. And it was just always so many great and incredible memories that I had hanging out at that farm, which I truly believe, if I psychoanalyze myself, really sort of incepted me into feeling like, hey, a Vermont farm is a good, cozy place. And I think at a certain subconscious level, there was some of Jeff's doing that really set me up to end up here on this farm in Vermont. But then there's actually this other element of, eventually, I started thinking about maybe one day having my own place. You know, I was getting kind of tired of city life and trying to figure out what was next. And Jeff was strongly encouraging me to buy this little old farm down the road from him that was currently occupied by two sisters who were like in their 90s. You know, Jeff personally kind of coached me through things to think about and how to approach them and how to make the deal work. But unfortunately, or fortunately, if you're a fan of our farm here, it didn't quite work out. And really there were two factors that really killed the deal. Number one, we just couldn't quite make it work financially with the sisters, but then number two, we had this problem of the fact that my wife Allison absolutely despised the house.
It didn't need a renovation, it needed an exorcism. It was very dark and dirty. I did not like it at all.
She would often say it was like a haunted house and looked creepy, and she did not want to live there. And so while she was very open to the idea of buying a farm in Vermont, she was not open to the idea of moving to that farm specifically.
And there you go. There's our family of goslings. The parents protecting and teaching the little ones. Everybody's doing good.
Quite honestly, that wasn't the only way that Jeff influenced me though, because spending time with him and seeing the way he looked at life really got me thinking about my own life. You know, I feel like so much of the way I spent my 20s and even early 30s, I was just focused on a path and trying to make myself successful and doing the hard work that I needed and eating whatever bowls of crap I needed to eat. But when I looked at Jeff, I mean, here was a guy who was roughly twice my age, and he was living this life that was absolutely incredible. You know, he had a farm in Vermont, but then he had a daughter and wife and a family in Dublin, Ireland, and he spent, I don't know, last 25 plus years of his life as an expat living in Dublin, but then spending a fair amount of time here in the United States too, in Vermont. He had crazy investments and activities going on all over the world, and it just seemed so fascinating and incredible to me. And it showed me that, you know, a guy could be really successful and not have to work a 9-to-5 job and not have to follow that traditional path. And honestly, that was not something I really ever kind of like internalized as a possibility until I was like, you know, my late 20s, early 30s, and hanging out with Jeff and seeing kind of what he'd achieved. You know, that's honestly what gave me the confidence to shift gears career-wise when I was 38 and move up here to Vermont and take a lesser job and start devoting more and more of my energy to building out this farm and everything surrounding it. And again, I have Jeff to be thankful for that. Now, I tell all of you guys this now with a bit of regret in my heart because I never actually said any of this stuff face to face to Jeff. And in fact, I hadn't even really communicated it to him in any way over the course of his life until really the final couple of weeks. I kept thinking about him and trying to convey a lot of these things, and I don't know, I'm just not really good at communicating to people like on a one-to-one fashion, right? Which I know is probably really ironic. But one afternoon I was having lunch with Mike and he said, yeah, his dad was really not doing well and, you know, probably only had a couple weeks left. And it was shortly after that lunch that I sat down and I wrote Jeff a letter and I sent it off to him in Ireland. But a couple days after I sent the letter, I got word that Jeff had passed away. And quite honestly, it was a huge sense of regret I had because I couldn't have imagined that he read the letter. He seemed like he was in a bad way his last couple of days. And I was sad because I felt sad that my friend had passed away, and I felt sad because I never got to say what he meant to me. And that was tough. It was sort of a bitter pill to swallow. Much like the pills I have to give you to swallow, buddy, so that you stay nice and healthy. But the other night, while I was at this event where we were shooting off the fireworks, I actually had a really great conversation with Sharon, Jeff's widow. And she actually told me that Jeff did get the letter. And she was the one who actually read it to him. He wasn't able to read it at the time, but he could hear it. And she told me the story, and it just showed me that, yeah, it was actually something he saw, and he did end up knowing, and it was really nice to hear that it brightened up his last couple of days, and it made me feel good to know that some of those feelings and thoughts that I had were conveyed to the guy. And so I tell all of you guys this story because I just want you to think about the folks in your lives and think about some of the things that they mean to you and what they've done for you and how it's important to you, and strongly encourage you not to wait to convey it. I mean, is it writing a letter? Is it saying it in person? I don't know, whatever works for you. My point is, just don't simply wait. Okay, sappy emotional time over. Toby, you can eat your food. Molly Murder Mittens, I see you lingering there wanting to do something. You know, I've actually got a bunch of stuff I gotta do here around the farm today. I'm in the process of building a new water station and power station. You see, I've been working with my buddy Zach to lay a whole bunch of water piping all around the farm. It'll ultimately feed through here. I know it seems like it's been a long time coming, but it's a part of my strategy to beautify the farm, as well as make the farm a lot more efficient. Of course, one thing making my farm less efficient are these weird looking chickens. You know, I was seriously considering getting out of the weird looking chicken business, but weird looking chickens being the way they are, they have multiplied, as you saw in a previous video there. Rosie and her little ones are doing good. We actually had one pass away. I'm not exactly sure what was wrong. I found it actually like right over there, and it was not doing too well. I tried to save it, tried to warm it up, but nothing could be done and it passed away.